Hello everyone, my name is Archangel, and with State of Decay 3 coming out, I would like to talk to you guys about the top 10 things I think we absolutely need changed from the way they were in State of Decay 2. Alright, I'm going to start with the least important change in my opinion at number 10 and go all the way to the most important one. Let's go get into it. Starting off with number 10, meaningful clothing. If I remember correctly, someone suggested a few years back in the State of Decay 2 forums that clothing should influence the way our characters play. For example, if someone has a tough leather jacket, it should be much harder for a zombie to bite through. But a jacket like that should definitely be heavier and harder to move in than a sports t-shirt. If the player manages to find a dress for female survivors or a suit for a male survivor, maybe that should make them earn more influence when trading because they look good. I have also seen someone suggest cargo pants and military plate carriers increase the amount of ammunition and parts the character can carry. Maybe military bases could have some rare clothing such as night vision goggles or plate carriers or helmets. After all, the military should be best equipped for this. These little tweaks might make it worthwhile to loot clothing rather than how it is now in a State of Decay 2, because whenever I loot clothing instead of actual loot, I just get frustrated. At number 9, I have maps. Something which I didn't like is having more small maps, rather than having one big one, as was the case with Trumbull Valley in State of Decay 1. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if we could travel to other cities, but I hate the fact that the maps are not joined and they get reset whenever you travel between them. Considering this, I'd love to be able to choose a starting location and then be able to go to different towns without the game resetting. And if the devs want to add a new map with later updates like they did in State of Decay 2, I think it would be nice to just join them to the previous maps using a tunnel or a long bridge or something. And so that it makes sense lore-wise, maybe you could get some message that you need to rescue someone in that new city, and to be able to get there, you need to, let's say, fix the bridge, or remove a broken down truck in the tunnel, or destroy a plague wall like the ones we fought in Trumbull Valley in State of Decay 2. Also, something which would be nice, difficulty-wise, is having the first town you spawn in not have that many zombies, of course depending on the difficulty setting the player chooses, and then having a so to speak endgame location that has the best loot, but is also loaded with plague zombies and plague freaks. Coming in with number 8, sleeping. One thing that is kind of self-explanatory is a sleeping mechanic. The thing wasn't in State of Decay 2, and holy shit, I hated being forced to go out at night, since you can't really see properly, but it didn't seem to bother the zombies much. Also, not being able to rest would mean that sometimes in the early game, every single one of your characters was tired, and it was an insane pain in the ass to play when you cannot run for more than 2 seconds. And to give the players some incentive to go out at night, the devs could add some special monster that drops some really valuable loot for the survivors to try and hunt. Also, night could give us advantage when trying to attack hostile enclaves, so that the player would have a meaningful choice whether they want to go out at day or at night. Coming in at number 7, zombie spawn fixes. Something which frustrated me extremely in State of Decay 2 were zombie spawns that were fixed to player movement and actions. If I kill all zombies inside and around the house, I should definitely be able to fast loot anything inside without having to be afraid that I'm going to attract zombies from the outside, since realistically, there should be no zombies in the vicinity to hear any sound I make, especially when I'm inside a house. Same thing should apply for locations as well. If I drive around in my car and honk to bait all the zombies into the street and then run them over, there should be almost no zombies remaining in that part of the town, and I should be free to loot as much as I want. Of course, the same should apply if I sneak around and silently take them all out. This might seem imbalanced to someone, so here's my proposition. Make locations that have important loot less accessible with vehicles and loaded with zombies. Also, put the zombies inside the buildings that have the loot and make them unable to get out so easily, such as locked doors. Changes to audio could also help so that they don't get baited as easily, and so on. Alright, moving on, we have number 6, hostile humans. A thing that pissed me off insanely much in State of Decay 2 was the godlike durability of human enemies. Like, I shot a guy in the face with an AK. I'm sorry, but he should be dead on the spot, and not just knocked down for him to simply get up 3 seconds later. Of course, this should apply to player-controlled humans as well. After all, a person armed with an assault rifle should be much more dangerous than a mindless zombie. Also, I think it would be nice if enclaves could have more than 3 members and take bases under their control, even though this might make them an insane pain in the ass if a hostile enclave were to have, let's say, 8 members. But it would be something new and different if both allied and hostile enclaves functioned as under communities like the one we control, and they actually did things around the map. Moving on to number 5, meaningful skills. In State of Decay 2, there were some skills that were very underwhelming, even though in a post-apocalyptic world they should be extremely useful, such as plumbing, electrical, surgery, electronics, metalworking, and others. Considering these skills didn't provide anything super important, I always chose other skills over them, such as driving, hygiene, pathology, munitions, or something else. Of course, I'm not saying the other skills should be made weaker. What I'm saying is, these skills should be made more important, such as needing plumbing or electrical when wanting to take a power or a water outpost. Because honestly, how are we getting the electricity or water back to our base without a plumber or an electrician? Severe injuries should need a surgeon to be fixed, because a bad fracture or some internal damage would not just get better on its own. That could also give importance to the field hospital, which, let's be honest, was kinda useless in State of Decay 2. And this change could make it a very meaningful facility to have, because it should be a far superior building over an infirmary. There are more like this, but I'm not going to waste your time. Next up, at number 4, I put being able to interact with the world more. Another thing which frustrated me very much, and from what I remember many players in the forums as well, were the broken down cars that would block the roads. From what I remember, someone suggested adding a tow truck into the game so that the players would be able to move the broken cars out of the way. And that made me think, this is an incredible idea, which 100% should be spread to more things in the world, such as being able to find a buzzsaw and cut down trees to farm materials, looting houses to find good beds for your babes, or perhaps finding good computers for your command center. One thing that should be tied to this idea would be specialized equipment, like the previously mentioned buzzsaw, such as a fuel siphon, so that the players could go around trying to get some fuel out of the broken down cars, which would most probably require for the devs to make gas canisters to be able to be only partially filled, but I'm guessing these guys are more than enough experienced for that. One more thing that comes to mind would be some hunting gear or maybe traps to hunt animals with, and be able to get raw meat from them. Alright, and now moving to my top 3, the most important changes that I think we 100% need in State of Decay 3. At number 3, I put the Outpost rework. Alright, this is going to take a while because there's a lot to unpack here. Outposts in State of Decay 2 made very little sense to me. I loved the update that added the lights, but where is the electricity coming from? There are no generators at the outpost, and without a power outpost, there shouldn't be any electricity. Another thing that is just dumb is the automatic collection of resources from an outpost. Like, how are the resources getting into the base? Also, we spend a lot of materials when upgrading the outpost level, but there are no visible changes to be seen. I would love to see some fencing, barbed wire, maybe some spikes in the ground for the zombies to run into. Next is the stash. It was connected to the main base. Like, is there a wormhole in the box or something? It just makes the outpost way too convenient. However, the by far strongest and dumbest thing were the landmines. Where the hell are we getting this much explosives? Who's putting them into the ground? Why don't they blow up when the player steps on them? They were simply way too overpowered, and it made zero sense that we'd be able to create them just for a few parts and fuel, or whatever it was. Last, outposts should need to be manned. It only makes sense to have 1 or 2 people maintaining the safe perimeter and delivering the resources back to the base. Even though, for further out bases, I'd prefer if they produced a rucksack every 3 days for the player to take, since it should be too dangerous for one person to cross the entire map on foot. However, there could be a supply line system like there was one in Fallout 4, where outposts could be connected in between each other and settlers would travel and transfer resources. This way, it could make sense that resources and supplies could be transferred between the base and outposts. Now, I know these are in a way some really big nerfs for the outposts, but please remember that before the update they would generate only 1 resource per day and didn't have minefields. Nevertheless, to balance this out, I propose not needing any influence at all while upgrading your outpost, because let's be real, why should our community spend influence to upgrade our own outpost? Also, I would like to be able to assign survivors to resource collection, For example, if I went out looting and got a lot of fuel and don't need any more for the day, I'd like to be able to send the person who is transferring resources from a fuel outpost to a materials outpost, for example, and get that instead. And finally, outposts shouldn't be limited by the level of the command center and its upgrades, but rather by the amount of survivors we have that could maintain them. Alright, moving on to number 2, bigger communities. This one is, in my opinion, extremely important. Maybe it's on the same level as my number 1. And from what I recall, this was one of the most criticized things in State of Decay 2. The 9 survivor limit was kind of a frustrating thing, because more often than not, you would be missing out on 2 or 3 good skills due to the people limit. Also, it would be rather awful when moving to a new base, and even with the boost to building speed, you weren't able to build quickly due to the lack of personnel. I don't know how many people could the community possibly have and what sets the limit. Maybe having too many survivors kind of breaks the game, but I think the limit should be set at a number where we can have all skills at least once, plus some of the extra skills like hygiene or driving. In my opinion, the more the better, but the lowest the limit should be set at is at least 20. And finally, at number 1, I have bigger bases and base outposts. This one directly ties to the larger communities that I was previously talking about, but it is a thing that, in my opinion, is an absolute must-have in State of Decay 3. Adding the ability to expand our bases, or simply have one large base on the map that would require, let's say, 15 people to capture it, and have loads of slots, basically an endgame base. Ideally, both combined of course. It could also be that this large base would be the only one where the player could spend, let's say, 50 materials to build a fence around the perimeter and expand the base, basically making it the one true endgame base in the game. On the topic of expandable bases, I thought it'd be best if I showed it on an exemplar. And that is that, look at all this space that is not being used. I think that you should be able to spend materials to take all of this space, fortify this fence over here, then put some barbed wire on the walls over here, then like fill this space over here, and like basically widen the space of your base and enlarge it. The same goes for the front. Like, I think you should be able to spend materials to take... Okay, this could be kept for parking, but you know, clear... like you need a, I don't know, a tow truck or something to clear this space because of the container. But like all of this space, yeah, like I said before, fortify this fence and make the base larger. That I think would be great. It should be extremely expensive, of course. It should cost like, I don't know, let's say 50 materials. But I think you should be able to enlarge your bases, and this is by far the best example out of the entire second game to show it on. Another thing that I previously posted on the State of Decay 2 forums, and players seemed to like it a lot, were base outposts. Basically, taking a base as an outpost instead of a simple outpost. To balance it out, you should need the minimum required survivors to take a base like that, while still having the minimum required for your main base, which would work perfectly with the previously mentioned bigger communities. And that's it for today's video. I really hope you guys liked it. Please let me know down in the comments what you think about the changes I propose, and please help me share these videos so that it can hopefully get to the developers of State of Decay 3. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.